Hello, and welcome to this course with Group 3. This series is all about how to use the Softube Model 84 synthesizer. The Softube Model 84 is a 6-voice polyphonic synthesizer that's based on a Roland Juno 106. This is a really excellent synth for a really wide variety of different types of synth patches, and can be used in practically any genre of music. One of the things that makes this emulation actually super special is the fact that it doesn't include any external effects that weren't included on the original hardware. At first, this might seem a little bit like a disadvantage, but one of the reasons the Juno 106 and the Juno 60, the predecessor to the synthesizer, the reason that they're so great inside of a studio or a recording session is because they're an extremely flexible synthesizer that can really take on a lot of character from the way that you process it. So the nice part about this instrument here is that you can create your synth patch and then layer on your favorite effects devices to get your own unique sound out of the synth. The other added benefit of this is that all the presets don't have a bunch of random external effects. They're very dry, and then you can process them how you want depending on the style of record that you're working in. So it actually makes it much simpler to scroll through the presets or design your own patch and make that integrate into an actual production a lot faster. And that's one of the things that sets this emulation apart from other software versions of the synth. This course will explain all the different parts of the synth, and then at the very end, I'll show you some different presets to show you how you can use this in an actual production. This course will also be for people who already know a little bit about how synthesizers work and basic synthesizer terminology. So if you're completely new to using synthesizers in a workstation, I'd recommend checking out some of the beginner synth courses on Group 3's website first, and then coming back after having learned the basics. So as I said, this synthesizer is really great for just about any production. It can sound super vintage and 80s with this really excellent chorus that's included on this device, or you can turn that off and process it in a really modern way for modern pop production, R&B, or just about any style you're working in. The other thing that makes this synth really great is it has a super simple architecture to it. So it's a very simple signal flow, so it's really quick to design just about anything you want, and it's actually very hard to make this synth sound really bad. So that's one of the nice things about this synthesizer is it's very musical, and it's really designed to help songwriters and keyboard players just add really nice melodic components to their records. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into some of the presets and also the global controls. We'll talk about the global controls first, and then I'll show you the preset browser on the synth device. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to resize this interface. So it's super simple. All we have to do is go down to this bottom right-hand corner, click on this. You can either drag and make it really large, which could be nice because then it fills up more of your screen. It's a little bit easier to see some of these individual parameters or some of the smaller controls. Or if we're working on a really big and ultra high-res screen, I can always make this super small as well, and then layer in, effects on the side or whatever I'm processing it with. Now, for us, this is extremely small, so I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit larger. But it is helpful to note that that is an option depending on the size of screen that you're working with. Make that just a little bit bigger so it's easier to see for our videos. Next control we have up at the top is going to be this undo and redo control. So let's say I made a change. Let's go ahead and just adjust this volume here. Now let's say I was playing my synth patch and decided that I didn't like that change I just made. I can go ahead and click on this, and it's going to undo that change that I've made. So this is ultra nice because it gives me the option to either undo or redo changes, and I can do it directly from inside of the synthesizer. Depending on the workstation that you're using, sometimes using undo commands in the file menu up here will actually sometimes undo the creation of this instrument or effects device that you're using. Just depends on how everything is coded inside your workstation. Ableton's usually pretty good about it, but sometimes if you just use like Command Z or Control Z, it'll actually undo the creation of this instrument. So I usually like using these undo and redo commands here up at the top, so that way I don't accidentally do that. The next control is going to be this MIDI CC control. This enables us to map external MIDI CC data to the synthesizer. By default, we can see that the pitch and modulation are linked to some of the controls in the MIDI CC inside of Ableton already. So this is linked to my pitch bend wheel on my keyboard, and MIDI CC1 is linked to the modulation wheel. I could either load a file for MIDI CC data if I've created a custom preset, or I could save a file if I go in and make a change. The other option I have up here is I can go ahead and click on this, and then I can link external MIDI CC. This could be helpful if I have a fader on my keyboard and I want to go ahead and map that to, say, the filter, for example. Let's say I'm doing a live performance and I find that I want to adjust that in the middle of my song. I go ahead and click on this, move that MIDI CC value, and that's going to go ahead and link that parameter. Now for us, we don't need to do any of that right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit exit MIDI CC linking mode. But it is helpful to know that that is there, and that is an option inside of the synth. The other thing that we have over here is going to be the settings. So if I click on this, it's going to give me a couple different options. The first of which is going to be this tooltips. I have this disabled for now, so I don't have a bunch of pop-ups, but if you're new to the synthesizer, I recommend turning this on. It can be helpful to kind of give you a little bit more information about exactly what each of these parameters are doing. And all you'd have to do is go ahead and click on this and then decide how those are going to go ahead and open. You can either hover, click, or have edit only. Just depends on the behavior of kind of how you want those to pop up. But for us, we're going to go ahead and turn that off for now. Then we have the window size controls. So we can either save this as our default, so this larger window size, or we can go ahead and hit reset, and it's going to reset it to its default state. Now for us, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit larger just for the videos. That way it's a little bit easier to see everything. I'm going to hit save as default. Then every time I open the synth, now it's going to be this slightly larger window size. And then we have a couple of advanced settings, first of which is the option to use the Metal API graphics. This will depend on your computer and the setup for that computer that you're working in. I do have the option for this graphics processing style, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this turned on. But again, that will depend on the type of computer that you're using. If you're finding that you're getting some weird like graphical glitches and stuff with the synthesizer, I recommend just going ahead and turning this off and seeing if it improves your performance. Last two options we have, and they can either show the value displays, so the different values on these different sliders. We'll go ahead and leave that on because that's helpful for us. Or I could show and hide the keyboard. If I want to hide this keyboard section down here at the bottom, I can go ahead and click on this, and it's going to go ahead and disable that keyboard. But for us, I want to go ahead and leave that on. But that is an option if you're trying to save space on your screen. If I want to pop up the manual, I can go ahead and click on the Softube logo, and it'll pop that up for us. That's all for those kind of main controls up at the top. Now I want to talk briefly about the preset browser. So we have a couple of different options. We have a quick view and then kind of a more detailed view depending on what we need. So the first one's going to be this quick view. I can click on this drop down. First, we can add some presets. So if I want to add a preset in my library, I have all the options to save or revert changes. So let's say, for example, I made some changes on my synthesizer patch. I can click on this menu and revert everything back to its default state. I'm turn off that chorus so we don't have any noise in the background. But that is an option there. We have different clear search or clear filter, or we can go ahead and open these presets through this kind of quick view. So we can scroll through these different categories here, or we could choose one from up here. So maybe try this choir lead. So that'll give us this nice choir lead, or we can scroll through and grab a different preset. So maybe use the Matt Johnson presets here. Maybe try this 80s arpeggio. So that enables us to kind of quickly scroll through those presets, or we can use these arrows to scroll down that list as well to find a preset that way. Or if we'd like a more advanced view, which is usually how I like to work, I can go ahead and click on this open preset section over here. And then this gives me this larger preset browser. So the first thing we could do is go ahead and search for something. So let's say maybe ARP. Go ahead and search for an ARP. And then we have all of these different options. We can click on one here, loads it up. Then we can play it back. And it gives me this new arpeggio sound. Again, we click on this, it opens it up, and it gives me a couple different options. Then we have the option to add a preset. So again, it's kind of like that drop-down menu that we saw over here, just a new version of that. We can save the preset. We also have the option to edit tags, info, or see this tile view, which gives us a different way of viewing everything. I usually like the list view, but it is helpful that that is there. You can also show or hide the info. I'm going to go ahead and turn on tags and then go back to my list. And then we have that same, kind of general save as menu that we saw before, with a couple of those different options. Then we can use the search parameter to kind of modify our searches quickly. Let's maybe go for keys. Let's do moving keys. And it'll give me all the presets that have been tagged with those different tags. I click on this, it's going to load up that new preset, and let's try it out. That gives me that nice keys patch. And I can go through and change this. So I can turn off the modifiers, turn on new ones. Just depends on how I'd like to search through everything. Then we also have a couple of different pieces of information on here that are helpful. We have preset name. We have this different kind of icon here to let me know that this is part of the factory library. We have a rating system where we can give them stars depending on which presets we like. Kind of a nice way to organize everything. And then we have these different color options that we can modify down here. So let's say I could change this to blue, or I could change it back to this kind of yellow color. A little bit of a description about that preset, and then the different collection that this is a part of. If we click into that preset, we get a more advanced view. We can even change or adjust the cover here, or change this information. We can even add icons as well to keep things organized. So there's a lot of ways of categorizing presets, which could be helpful for kind of quickly working on sessions. What I'd recommend doing is picking one way of kind of marking your favorite presets, either using this color system or the rating system. And then you can go ahead and just mark your favorite presets, go through the whole library or a section of the library. And that'll kind of enable you to quickly work inside of sessions. So if you're trying to find a bass, you can go ahead and just quickly find your favorite basses using that system. You can also add tags or remove tags just depending on what you need as well, which can be quite helpful. You can even make a favorites category and label everything that way. A lot of different options. By the way, if you'd like to close up this advanced menu, you can either click right here or click on the side to open it. We'll talk about that in its own video once we start breaking down the different parts of the synth. Last thing that I want to cover is going to be this volume control. This is helpful to control the overall output volume of my synthesizer. If I want more volume, turn it up. If you're finding a synth patch is too loud and it's feeding into your DAW with too much volume, or an effects device or something, you can adjust this. So that way you can kind of gain stage everything before it hits any external effects you may have loaded in your software. So that's just kind of a helpful workflow thing to be aware of before kind of jumping into the main synthesizer. So that covers all of those basic global controls and also the presets functions. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next video where we start breaking down the individual parts of the synthesizer.